This meeting yesterday, that I was privy to a meeting which the Honourable Minister had in her office after the budget had been submitted to her for approval. And I said in that meeting is where the proposals were discussed between the Minister and the management. And I do recall I was asked the process of the budget getting to the Minister, and took this committee through that whole process, from the committee stage to the board to the Minister. I do also recall that mention was made after the Minister had given her views on the budget, through which views she made mention of the discussion they had held, of the areas they had agreed, where the 6 billion was supposed to be utilized. And we discussed a meeting that took place, which the board said was a strategic review at Serena Hotel on 25th, I think, of November. And we said in that meeting, management brought in proposals now to respond to those strategic areas and how they intended to finance the activities under those areas. That was on 25th of November. And we, I think, left that matter at a point when a honorable member asked about the board, whether the board approved the budget or not. And reference was made to a meeting which was supposed to take place on 6th, which took place on 6th December, whose agenda had included an item of the 6 billion. But because the investigations had now begun by the IGG, that matter was deferred. So that is what I recall about the 6 billion.
Ask in another way, as in the budget for this financial year. Yes or no, 22, 23?
The 6 billion came as a result of the comments.
But was it in the budget?
It had not yet been approved. It had not been approved because when comments came in from the minister, it went back. And I did mention that for the 6 billion now to become part of the budget, it had to go through a due process of approval. And by 6th of December, that process had not been completed.
You have just said, when the 6 billion came to you, you subjected it back for another fresh process of approval.
Yes.
But do you recall that yesterday you told this committee that it is the minister who came up with the 6 billion, and that was a mistake?
Not me. Other members of the board, and I'm sure the record is there, other members of the board may have mentioned that, but on my part, I confirmed that there was a meeting where the 6 billion originated, and that I partially attended that meeting and left it when management was engaged
discussing this. Can we have other members on this specific matter? Because now the minister, why I want to clarify this matter before we start asking, because there was a perception yesterday that it is the minister who came up with this figure. From the documents the minister has presented, it seems there was a process. So now we need to confirm. Honorable Gaffer.
Chair, exactly the way you said, and it was not only the PS who also mentioned it, that whereas the ideas of the 6 billion were a scrutiny by the minister, which all of us appreciated, the mistake by the minister was in her letter to mention the figure. That is what you said yesterday, and the other members, that in her letter she should have written indicating those areas, because we were asking, how did you come up with the figure of 6 billion? Not 4 billion, not 3 billion, not 10 billion. because this process should have come from the structure the chair is mentioning. You mentioned that actually the discussion of the strategic areas for inclusion in the budget were out of the keen review by the minister. And in writing back, it means the process was going back to the structures to approve. The only mistake, these are your own words, the only mistake the minister made was in her letter to mention the figure of 6 billion, which has no origin from the budgeting process of the fund. And indeed, from all the documents we have seen and correspondences, the origin of the 6 billion as a figure is from the letter written by the minister.
Can we have another member before we allow the
We actually labor to ask a final question, which imputed to the fact that what did the work plan of the 6 billion come from the board or did it come from the minister? And the board clearly informed us that it came from the minister, meaning the work plan of the 6 billion and the 6 billion itself, the board had nothing to do with it. So I think we really need clarity on this because now they are really contradicting.
Honorable Amos.
First with management. He's Brown. Is he called Rumanyuka? Rumanyuka Ian. Strategy and marketing. I think he finally told us that this matter came to him, but he did not have details of the breakdown. So he was not the person who generated the budget which was supposed to be operated in his department.
Honorable, let's exhaust this matter because...
Yes, Chair. You see, Chair, I listened to the minister from the beginning. His explanation was clear and why he proposed that. There were two scenarios, and we interacted with the board and management yesterday. One, I want to remind the members, the work plan, according to the board and the management, is not yet out. They refused to conclude the budget because there was no work plan. I think we need a scenario where all of them are. And the Chair, if that's the case, I think yesterday we would have put all of them on oath. And that's the reason they gave us, they had no work plan, therefore they could not even approve the budget. Okay? But the other scenario of going to the minister and what have we discussing, they agreed it. You get my point? So to me, it is, the committee has no problem. It is your people and you people who are confusing us with different statements. In fact, it is true. You did not suggest the 6. Yours proposal was 5 point something. All right? Then they came up.
Theirs was 5.
Theirs, yes. Yeah, it was 5 something. All right? Uh-huh. And now the figures, the way they are twisting, who started it, how the management came, how they came to the ministry, how it went down, how the finance committee has not finalized. There is nothing which can go to the board, main board, when the finance committee has not finalized. So you can see the contradictions. And I think now the minister is convinced that nobody in the board is witch hunting you, but your people may be, the statements. And as you know, the good thing, you're a professional lawyer. You deal with law, we deal with figures, and win.
Okay, yes, Honorable. Lastly.
I have noted with concern serious contradiction this issue of 6 billion. This committee wants to know the relationship between the 6 billion and the COF2. Because we have a letter written by Honorable Sam Diomochi bringing the 6 billion.
Can we ask the questions? Let's first clarify, because we all have questions. Let's first clarify on the origin.
The origin. Okay.
So, no. You.
Of what exactly I said, a question was put to me. So did the minister make a mistake to recommend in the process of reviewing the submission by the board to recommend activities to be implemented under the 6 billion, I said, if at all she made a mistake in her letter, which I later told the committee I didn't have, and I kept on asking that that letter should be brought so that we get exactly the wording in that letter. So I said if she made a mistake, it would be for her to suggest the areas where the 6 billion would be allocated. That is what I said would be a mistake. For her to suggest the areas. But in terms of the powers she had to recommend which areas should be addressed within the budget, I said that was within her powers. But that notwithstanding, I said these activities now, or whatever proposals were in the letter, would now be subject to a due process within the fund. And one of the questions I was actually answering was whether this money was coming to the Ministry of Gender or not. And I said in that case, I wouldn't even have accepted the money to come to Ministry of Gender. But I confirmed, Honorable Chair, to this committee that there were discussions that took place before that figure came up in the Minister's office, in the meeting we had at Serena. That is what I recall as my submission.
Did you submit, okay, there were discussions in the Minister's office, but those are not binding according to the procedures of approving a budget at NSSF. Going to my office is not going to Parliament. So, there were discussions with 2 or 4 people, let me assume. What we're trying to establish is corporate governance. Are all the steps being followed? Now, it brings me to another point of clarification related to the 6 billion. The 400 billion the Honorable Minister has talked about for purchase of land, of real estate. Did you approve it in your budget as a board?
Actually indicate in my submission yesterday that before the budget got to the minister, it had been considered by the finance committee, it had been considered by the board where I sit, and the board, through the chair, submitted it to the Honorable Minister. So yes, it is true, the 400 billion was within the estimates, and
okay. Was the 5.something billion, 5.6 billion part of that budget? It's just yes or no?
no.
It was not. Okay? So about, just tell us again like you told us yesterday. Because the budget that came from all these steps, from the investment committee, from the project monitoring, etc., didn't have the 5 billion. But the budget the minister received had the 5 billion. So where did it come from?
Maybe, Honorable Chair, which 5 billion are we talking about? Is it the 5 billion which is part of the...
Part of the 6 billion,
6?
yes.
Well, I'll repeat, Honorable Chair, that when the budget was submitted to the minister, she raised questions about the budget. She invited management. She has tendered documentation where management, led by Mr. Richard Biarugaba, Mr. Patrick Ayota, I think, and 2 other people, came to clarify to her the budget proposals they had made. And it is in that meeting, according to her, because I didn't attend the meeting up to the end, I attended it for the first minutes, left them discussing the details. So the 5 billion originates from that meeting, which ultimately becomes 6. It was in a meeting that was a follow-up to the letter she wrote to the fund.
The 5 billion originated from a meeting in the minister's office. Yes?
She has said so.
Yes. We are just trying to, we are not saying someone has stolen money. We're just trying to establish the steps. Now just tell us, at what point did it get into the budget? Because Mr. Biarugaba is saying he has prepared the work plans according to what the minister has presented. He prepared the work plan for it, how he's going to work with the labor officers at the lower level of management. So we just want to understand, as a board member, at what point did it get into the budget if you did not see it?
Honorable Chair, I was listening when the minister tendered her submission. She says after that meeting, follow-up correspondence points to the fact that she wrote, communicated what had come out of that discussion. And the MD, Mr. Richard Byarugaba, wrote back to her to give her assurance that the matters she had raised in her letter had already been covered under several areas within the budget of NSSF. He's not referring to the 6 billion. He's referring to the issues that had been raised in the letter as having partially been covered within the budget already. So I didn't see anything about the 5 or the 6 billion in Mr. Byarugaba's letter.
But yesterday the board told us that the minister wrote to the chairman of the board to reallocate money from certain items to cater for this 6 billion. Is it?
Yes, I didn't submit that myself. But what I remember saying is that let's look at the letter and see exactly what the minister instructed the board to do. Because the minister wrote back to the chair of the board. And I kept on calling for that letter. You read it, chair, yourself when you got it. You read it to the meeting. And that is what I had been saying, that for us to know exactly what the minister said, we need the letter. And we didn't have the letter.
So how did I read what I didn't have?
You read after you had received it. You are reading it from your phone, so I don't know how you received it.
No. I did not read any letter regarding reallocation. You told us, and we have asked for those documents up to now, we don't see them. But you told us, anyway, this matter, we have so many questions, I know. Do we have that letter?
Chair, yesterday, the Corporation Secretary promised to bring documents. I'm inquiring if they have been submitted. Maybe it could be one of those.
They should check, but clearly there is now a big problem. Let's ask the questions as we try to verify this matter. Now I'll be the first. Section 36(2), no money can be withdrawn without the minister's approval. So under what legal framework is NSSF, or under what legal framework did NSSF sign an MOU with the unions to implement NSSF responsibilities while drawing money from the savers fund? Because we already have the bank statements, we are aware that this money is transferred directly to the accounts of the unions. Honorable Minister, Section 3, I'll refer you to Section 3.3. Yes, they are for the team. Yes. The first one is 36(2). It states that no money shall be withdrawn from the fund without the approval of the minister. So under what legal framework is NSSF, or how did it sign an MOU with the unions to implement NSSF responsibilities while drawing money from the savers fund? Okay. 2, Section 3.3. We are aware that the board was here, has written to you 2 times, on 10th January 2023 and December 23rd, 2022, regarding misconduct of one of their members. And Section 3.3 requires you to take appropriate action. What steps have you taken? Yes, the board has written to you. That's what they told us. and the dates of the letters are indicated. Did you approve, since section 30, the board cannot spend without consultation of the minister? Did you approve 30? This is section 30. Yes, but it cannot spend without approval of the minister. Is it Minister of Finance or Gender? Power to borrow. Okay. I'll refer to another section. But still, this is in regards to the budget. And the budget, I believe you are the one who approves. We are informed that the board has increased their should I call it salaries, allowances, since we have not yet verified, from 7 million to 20 million shillings. We are also informed, and this was in one of the recent meetings, that they are getting the same benefits as full-time employees of NSSF. Kindly clarify. Okay. There's a letter dated 7th December 2022, which you wrote to the chairperson of the board of NSSF. 7th December 2022, which you wrote to the chairperson of the board of NSSF to give the Grain Council of Uganda 40 billion. Kindly clarify. Maybe this is not your letter, maybe it was forged. All the circumstances surrounding it. Honorable members, Honorable Masao.
Board. When I look at this letter, your letter dated 7th of December, I will read it verbatively. I think I'll begin from page 14, where we are talking about reallocation of 6 billion for activities of implementation of the new plan. I don't know if you have that letter. That is you. And then you go ahead. Reallocation of UGX 6 billion for activities of implementation of the new law as per letter from you. Chairman of the board articulating the transformation agenda. We left UGX 0.9 for staff expenditure. The MD refused to implement the decision of the board and minister. Page 14. Yes, page 14.
Yeah, kindly read it again. Above?
Yes. Page 14, as it begins, okay, there is some preamble, I think, from reallocation by cabinet, that is coming from page 14, directed by cabinet, and reallocating UGX 6 billion for activities to implement the new law as per letter from you, chairman of the board. Articulating the transformation agenda, we left UGX 9 billion for staff expenditure. The MD refused to implement the new decision of the board and minister, even with guidance and explanation from the deputy, I think, instead. So instead, then you go ahead, provided money to fly over 80 staff, Dubai and all that. So that is the issue I wanted you to come back to, of the 6 billion. And you go ahead still somewhere and you say, however, until his contract, I think you had another meeting. The matter ended with a meeting chaired by Honorable Kasaija with the MD, the Minister of State for Finance, Honorable Musasizi Obra, officials from Ministry of Gender, the board members, in which the MD apologized for his action. The meeting resolved that the 6 billion activities are within law and NSSF should implement it within its activities. However, until his contract expired, the MD had not provided for the money and the activities in the NSSF budget, despite the board approval. So that is what I wanted you to first go back to and explain to us.
And we have a third, maybe, and Honorable Gaffer.
Chair, you allow me ask all my questions at once so that They will be responded later, but I'll begin with the 6 billion. Honorable Minister, in your submission today to this committee on page 9, where you indicate it is worth noting that the very first bullet there, you say the 6 billion budget I approved is appropriated under the NSSF operations budget for 2022-2023, and the work plan was presented to me by the board and the management of NSSF. Two issues here arise. Number one, we have told you the board here yesterday said they have never seen this work plan, and that's why they have never approved that budget. But you are saying it was appropriated by the board and submitted to you. Number two, from your own submissions and all the correspondences you have tabled here, there is nowhere in all the letters, there is nowhere this 6 billion is mentioned. The first time the 6 billion is mentioned is from your letter to the chairman of the board. You have even mentioned here that actually from the discussions you had, first of all, we all appreciate your keen review of these budgets and the additional strategic interventions you wanted them to implement. That's very okay. The concern is, how did you come up with this figure of 6 billion? Even the 5 billion or so that you are saying it was discussed, it is not indicated anywhere in all the correspondences. In that same vein, from the submission, you indicated a detailed correspondence from the MD then, where the MD was explaining part of this 6 billion. And much of the explanation, the MD was indicating that some of these activities had already been provided for in the budget you approved. But even when that was done, the figure remained 6 billion. So you need to clarify why the figure remained 6 billion, even when they explained that some of the activities had already been provided. And in the correspondences, they indicate what was already provided for. They also indicate what they are reallocating. Now, Chair, I have another issue to do with the 400 billion for the real estate vis-a-vis governance. The minister has indicated that in her due diligence, she asked the chairperson of the board, and the chairperson said they had never approved this 400 billion. Isn't that correct? What I want...
Land.
Yes, the land.
For Nachigalala.
Yes. So, and this was in the budget that they submitted to you for approval. My assumption is that before they submit the budget to you, it has gone through the other committees and all of that. What then came to your mind? If you have a budget item submitted to you by the board, having been approved by the board, but the chairperson of the board is denying the fact that this item was there, then why didn't you question the other budget items if the chairperson of the board denied this one? What made you think that all of the other budget items were genuine? Lastly, still on governance, I appreciate your proactiveness. When you get petitions, you respond, you try to do due diligence. Even when a member raised the matter of gender balance on the board, you acted on it. Honorable Minister, there are petitions and complaints about 2 members of the board from Koftu, that the way they came was not proper. And these petitions are addressed to you. I also want you to say something. What did you do when you received these petitions and complaints? Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Can we let them respond to those and pick another?
Because I found it already within the fund that the fund was supporting COF2 and NO2. So this one you can ask Honorable Kasaija. But the only thing I can add as a Minister of Labor, not related to the money, is that I know that when I go to the field, those employers tend to respond more to people they think are leaders of workers. So many times I have seen when my directorate goes to the field, they respond so much. When workers MPs go, they even start calling you. The workers were here, please, we are going to handle this, we are going to handle this. So there is a sense of fear when they see the people they feel are responsible as leaders of workers, and they solve that problem quickly. So me, that is what I have seen. But on the MOU, that one you can ask Honorable Kasaija. When I came, I found this set of board members already appointed. And there were already so many petitions that had already gone to Kasaija. And he had not done anything. Now, in matters of work ethics and relationship, if you find a colleague has already appointed someone and a team had petitioned your colleague and your colleague had already handled a matter to that effect, sometimes it will not augur well for me to try to undo what my colleague has left. So I made it very clear that since I did not appoint this board, because there's a procedure for appointing a board members, there's a procedure for analyzing and even vetting, and so I did not want to go into an area which was already a matter handled by my colleague. The only thing I can add is that I think of recent, the chairman wrote to me maybe a month or so ago, I don't have the letters, himself, just a plain letter asking for me to take action on some members of the board. However, I told him that the matter of removal of board members is enshrined in the law. And once a matter is enshrined in the law, you must put grounds. So I asked him to go back and redo his letter. But again, when I inquired, I did not get confirmation that the board had approved. So I told him if the board has not approved, because I consulted a few board members, and board members said the matter did not, because the chair had said the board had approved. So I requested that forward it with the board's approval for removal, but the board's approval for removal is not there. So, Chair, I am really constrained on this because it's a matter that can go to court, considering that I was not the one who appointed that particular board member. And there was petition before me, which the person who appointed him had either handled or maybe had decided to handle by consensus. The increase in emoluments, Honorable Chair, I received a letter from the Managing Director on 16th August 2022, drawing my attention to concerns of board members regarding their retainer fee and increments. And so he proposed to me in his letter as follows: that I increase board of directors fees. Number one, the board chairperson retainer fee, I increase it from a gross of 9.5 million to 31,503,333 per month, or a net of 20 million. Number two, committee chairperson's gross retainer fee of 26,503,333, or net of 17 million. And three, for board member.
Honorable Minister, clarification.
That data is from who?
Managing director,
Who's
dated
managing director?
16th
Are you
August. The then managing director, Mr. Richard Biarogaba, on 16th August 2022. And I've already read the figure that he wanted me to raise for chairperson.
These are chairpersons of committees on the board.
Let me start afresh. Board chairperson, that I increase from 9.5 million to 31,503,333 per month, or a net of 20 million. Number two, committee chairpersons from 22 to 26,503,333, or a net of 17.
From
Board member.
From 22 million.
No.
From 2 million
to 26.
To 26.
503,333, or a net of 17 million. Then for board member, that I increase from 7.5 to a net of 15. And he had put his justification that it will align the board remuneration to comparable entities within Uganda and beyond, that it will enable and facilitate the board in providing seamless stewardship and services, and the financial implication of the proposed retainer fees can be taken care of by the approved budget. So, when I received it, I wrote back to him and said, I have carefully reviewed the justification you made for the proposed increment of the retainer fees. In making a decision, I have addressed myself to His Excellency the President's strategic guidance to ministers, directing us to always be cognizant of A, the global and local economic parameters, B, the plight of the local wananchi, C, the need to avoid attracting political discontent from majority of the population. In lieu of the above, I note that according to Section 2.1 of the National Social Security Fund, the fund is a pool of workers' contributions made in expectation of benefits at retirement. And under Section 4.3 of the National Social Security Fund, the board is charged with the responsibility of ensuring that there is secure, profitable, and effective financial management of the fund for the benefit of the workers in particular and the country at large. Suffice to note that the growth of the fund has been interrupted by severe global and local turbulence, which has reduced members' interest for this financial year substantially. I note that the report of the NSSF Board Reward and Remuneration Survey 2022 states that about 75% of the corporate entities surveyed pay monthly board retainer fees of less than 7.5 million, which the NSSF board members currently earn. The said survey also showed that NSSF Kenya board members earn a retainer fee of about 2 million. Furthermore, the survey showed that the directors of Uganda Revenue Authority, which in financial year 2021-22 collected 20 trillion, earn a monthly retainer fee of 5 million. According to the survey, the only board members of Parastatal who earn more than NSSF board members are those of the Petroleum Authority of Uganda and Uganda National Oil Company. In the private sector, it is only board members of Uganda Breweries Limited, Absa Bank, and Old Mutual who earn more than NSF board members. Additionally, my review of government bodies such as Post Bank, Uganda Development Bank, Uganda Bureau of Statistics, Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority, and Uganda Electricity Regulatory Authority, indicates that their retainer ranges from 3 million to 10 million respectively. You should also note that unlike other parastatals like Petroleum Authority of Uganda and Uganda National Oil, the NSSF is a member fund which is constantly under spotlight of workers. Therefore, any increment of retainer fee of NSSF board members, which is not easily justifiable, will lead to workers' discontent and negative publicity on the ministry and the fund, with potential bad political ramifications. I wish to state that I recognize the role of the remuneration in motivating board members. However, I do not find the proposal to increase the gross retainer fee of the percentage respectively reasonable and justifiable. In view of the foregoing and in recognition of the current bad economic outlook of our country and globally, I propose that we continue with the current remuneration while assessing how the economic recovery presents further opportunities. Then we can review this proposal in the near future. I thank you and the board for your service. So that was my reply to that. Then later, they came back, held a meeting I don't know whether in the board. The chairman again came back to me and wrote a new requisition saying after I rejected and asked them to review, they have reviewed and they held a meeting with me and I approved an increment as follows. Chairman from 9.5 to 12.8 and members from 7.5 to 10.117. So that is what I approved. About it, because for me, I approved this one to cover everything. Of course, the chairman had earlier come to me and requested for a vehicle, office, fuel, and other benefits. But I told him that I need precedents that has been set. If Honorable Kasaija has been doing that, then I would be able to use the precedents to do that. So I did not approve that particular request for the chairman because his issue was that even if the other members are not to get those one as a chairman, he works every day. We should provide him office and vehicles and others. So I'm still waiting for the president set, and if I'm brought, then I can look at that particular one.
Can I seek clarification?
Clarification, and can we have copies of those?
My letter of December 7th address to give Grain Council. Chair, can you take me to the page where I said they give Grain Council money?
But Chair, she gave us two figures. Earlier they had requested for 3 categories: the chairman, the chairpersons of the committees, and the general board members. What was the figure for the chairpersons of the committees?
I decided that the board chair, because they had already told me that when board chairpersons sit, they have some allowance they get. So I did not increase the allowance they get when they come to chair and committee members. So I decided that this retainer, which is monthly, should now cater for all the other things. And since they have allowances when they come to do some of this work, let them remain with that. So I didn't increase for the board chair.
When you go to page 7 of the document you laid on table, you are aware the Chief Coordinator OWC proposed strategic investment through the Grain Council. Our maize has already market in Kenya. This proposal is that government, together with the fund, form a national marketing vehicle that will organize the pathway to the huge potential markets that exist in the region and the whole of Africa. The company will identify specific markets for Uganda produce and then support farmers, produce and supply products needed by those markets. The reasons are there, but when you go to the conclusion on page 8, estimated overall cost of the fund approximates 40 billion for capitalization of the program. The operational funds would initially come from revolving lines of funding and later from retained earnings. If we can allocate 15 billion for staff welfare, 220 billion for operations, $1 million for construction of court as corporate social investment, why are we dragging on this contribution for only 20 billion, which is a strategic investment proposed by a senior government official? Is there now firm commitment from the MD? I need his answer. And you're writing to the chairperson of the board.
I don't see where I talked of approval, Chair.
Look at your concluding remark. You are requesting for firm commitment now.
Yes, but Chair, the statement I'm making here is a strategic statement. So if you want, I can answer the strategic statement. There's nowhere in the letter that I talks about approval.
When you ask the board chairman in that manner, is there firm commitment now? It means there have been prior discussions which have not yielded results. And now you are requesting the board chairman to verify, is there firm commitment now?
You see, commitment is, I am asking for commitment on the strategy. On the strategy. And Chair, the strategy was about a meeting with the national, the Grain Council. And I have all their documentation I can forward. They have a very beautiful plan which they presented and was referred to me. And I sent it to the board, they have discussed it, they came and presented to me, and they went to finance, they came back to me and said they have discussed with finance. So in their discussion, they were discussing with the officials of finance. I wanted to know, is there any firm commitment from finance on this matter or not? Because me, I have to report and call back the team for purpose of asking them, the reporting back, because they had got, I think, about $200 million.
Honorable Minister, your letter states, is there firm commitment from the MD, not finance?
Yes, because, Chair, I cannot jump the MD and run to officials in finance. For me, I relate with the chair, the board, and my MD. Now, they came to me, the Grain Council came to me, we discussed the matter. After discussing the matter, the MD and the chair told me they have constituted a team that aided by the deputy MD that is negotiating with finance. But that time they told me that finance was talking about either amending the law or something. But the Grain Council had gone to borrow money. They wanted a firm commitment. Are you people going to do it or not, so that we don't get the money? So I wanted a firm commitment so that I get the response to the Grain Council.
Okay, Honorable Minister, on that matter, who initiates investments? Because this is not like money from the consolidated fund where we see it and appropriate the way we want. Like I said earlier, this is a savers fund. So there's a procedure of initiating an investment. There are feasibility studies that are done. In this particular situation, who initiated this investment?
Chair, that one you can ask the chair board, because when I came, I was briefed by the chair and the then managing director about the Grain Council and all the issues around it, the engagement with the board, the team that they have constituted. Now, for me as a minister, I don't go to the nitty-gritty, because by the time a matter is coming to me, all the procedure and processes have been done. So when they came and briefed me, their issue was, we are now working with finance, and once we work with finance, and this is the issue raised by finance, they told me, this is how we intend to handle. So because investment is under finance, I allowed them to handle.
Okay.
Yes.
We have a board member. He can clarify for us. Have you ever discussed giving money to a grain council in your board meetings?
Well, I may not remember the details, but I've heard about this discussion at some point, but it was still a matter at management level. So it had not reached the point of the board pronouncing itself on the matter. So the best would be, I think, the MD. I know that the deputy MD was personally looking at this matter. There were some informal proposals that were coming up, but they had not yet reached the level of the board taking a decision. So my really take would be the best placed persons to submit on this would be the MD, the deputy MD at management level.
Yes, Honorable.
I still have some serious interest in this issue of the 6 billion.
She has not finished. We are going to establish
That page 14, the honorable member for Mbale had asked, can you just remind me, I know you asked about the 6 billion. On page 14.
When the PS was talking, he talked about the 6 billion not having been approved or not having come from the reallocations. But when you go to page 13-14.
Earlier, I had requested the committee, and through you, Chair, to get for us a legal interpretation of 29 as per the power of the minister. Because once we get the point of law in the act, which again 3, if I am to say, upon receipt of the annual budget or any supplementary budget, the minister shall approve or disapprove the budget or may approve it subject to such amendment as he or she may deem fit. I requested that let us have the interpretation, because everybody is asking the question around 6 billion with the presumption that the law made by Parliament.
Now, Honorable Minister, you give your opinion. The committee will make observations and various recommendations in regards to those observations. So,
no, but Honorable Chair, a point of law is very important.
You
because
just respond.
That is my response. Because the insinuation is that if I put in a letter that reallocate, then the insinuation is that I don't have the power to reallocate. Is that the issue or not?
No, that's not
or to amend or to do anything?
Let them ask the question
Clarification.
again. Who asked the question?
I asked that question. I asked the doctor about that decision having come from the board, and I think the MD is down the road to you. But still in your very letter you say the MD refused to implement the decision of the board and minister, and even with guidance and explanation. So you read your letter and see. And then you go ahead and say that still you had another meeting about the same, but still until his contract expired, the MD had not provided for the money and the activities in the NSSF budget. So that is
no, I stated before. In responding to my letter, the MD had reassured me that these activities have had budget allocation. So I was now asking him implementation of this.
The 6 billion, was it your idea or it came from, because the explanation you gave, it came from the MD and according to
Yes,
that letter
the
from the
6
MD.
billion,
Yes.
I want to repeat. When I was passing the budget, I asked them, I want precedents that have been set. Give me Honorable Kasaija's letter approving the budget. I read that letter. When they brought, I saw areas that Honorable Kasaija had stressed that make sure you handle this. I lifted those areas and put in my letter of asking for additional budget information. When the
Okay,
MD...
let me try to simplify my
No,
question.
no, let me first finish.
Let me please simplify my question. Did you ask maybe the board, and did you tell them that you look for the 6 billion and from wherever our budget?
No. In
Because
our meeting, the meeting that we have all referred to, when he brought this, because this letter came before the meeting. That's why in the conclusion of the letter is saying, in the meeting due to be held on Monday, 13th June 22, at 11 a.m., we shall be able to expound on the capital expenditure budget for real estate as highlighted. Because I told them, they come and explained to me these activities plus the one of capital expenditure. During the meeting is when now he explained clearly that this letter he has put brings the total amount for my activity, which I had proposed in my letter, to 5.6 billion. And I want you to do the calculation. Number one, sensitization 6.678. You add 678 plus 1.8, add it to in the letter he is telling me the various figures.
Clarification, Chair. And according to the board, the objectives, the strategic initiatives you had proposed for the 6 billion, they involved items that had already been catered for in the budget. That is according to them. And in this letter that they wrote to you, unless I am interpreting it wrongly, which you can correct me, they are indicating that according to your strategic initiatives, now like the first one on sensitization, no, the one for whistleblowers, that's one of your strategic initiatives for whistleblowers. And under their item 3, they indicate to you that they already have an octopus, that's the pension administration system, that is already being allocated to 1.8. That most of your items have already been catered for in their budget. And that is the operational budget that you approved. So how different are these strategic initiatives? You refer to them and the items they are telling you are already budgeted for. There's amount to approval of your strategic initiatives and them being allocated, being budgeted for, or is it an information to have already been budgeted for, according to what they told us yesterday?
No, let me answer, please. Because
The honorable member.
no, Chair, allow, because I'm going to forget, then the same question will come.
It is related on that. It is related. Honorable Minister, in a press statement, in a press conference, your press conference, you said it. You were justifying the 6 billion. One was to establish an online whistleblowing system to report non-compliance employees. Would the minister kindly explain how this would be different from the online whistleblowing system NSSF launched in January 2017? The second, third, and the fourth initiative seeks to drive mass registration of employers and employees, mandatory registration by undertaking compulsory registration, and follow up with enforcement effectively in different job industries. Expanding registration is something the fund has been doing over the past decades of great expense, and the number of savers and contribution have been growing in tandem. kindly, Honorable Minister, explain what is the strategy about this new strategy initiative and confirm that the NSSF budget does not already have the similar expenditures. Honorable Minister, are you willing to allow an independent investigation into this and my similar transaction at the fund to confirm whether the highest standard of good corporate governance have been upheld under your watch?
People like me, it becomes difficult. I stated that when I wrote in May, I asked for breakdown of budget.
Which budget is here?
The reply came, and in my letter I said, I am requesting you to put budget allocation for that activities. The rationale for that activity I already articulated to Parliament about the new law, bringing on board what more than half of what NSSF was already doing before. We didn't have voluntary. This new law is talking about voluntary. As a minister, I have to develop a new product for voluntary, which is 75% of the current workforce. It has never been part of the activity. So even if you have been budgeting for 1 billion to reach the formal sector, which has 5 workers and above, this time you need now to reach 75%, new 75%, plus about 49% of new workers whose employee below 5. So NSSF has been having a very small plate. The new law has increased for me the plate, and it coincided with me, the Minister of Gender, Labor, the mantle coming to me. So when he wrote this in our meeting, I told him I appreciate all these initiatives. I appreciate. But with the new law, this budget is based on your old intervention. So can you increase this amount so that we can now reach what the new law is targeting? I gave you all the statistics. And that is when the management said, okay, we can look at about 5 billion to kickstart implementation of the new law. I don't know, should I repeat the target group and the percentage under the new law, Chair?
No, clarification, Chair. And still on this document.
Of the November 2022, the board held a meeting and invited me. And in that, they presented to me that all the ideas I had brought with an attached budget line, and I laid it on the floor of Parliament. And that budget with its corresponding activities, item by item, they said this strategic activity, we propose allocating this. This, we propose this. It is a document before Parliament. I laid it. So on 25th, that board meeting which they called me to attend was to handle strategic issue plus presenting to me, and they presented. Now, at that meeting, the chairman then made a ruling that we are now going back. They actually told the management that by December 15th, and I have that letter, by December 15th, management come now with the detailed work plan. We shall call another meeting on 15th December and subsequently present to the board the work plan. But the strategic activities were presented to me on 25th. and I already laid it on table.
So those strategic activities speak to the 6 billion.
Totals to the 6 billion, and it came from the presentation that I was called. I have the letter that called me. One of the agenda that the invitation from the chairman was presentation on that. And it is there, even the board minutes are there, which I can avail.
There is either it's me who's not getting the two documents properly, or there is a confusion. Demonstrate the budget allocation for each activity. He's indicating that some of these activities you are talking about had already been provided for in the budget you approved.
Honorable Minister, the microphone.
I had not yet approved the budget. This letter, which they presented to me a budget, which was block figure. I wrote to them to break down the figure. Then this was a reply breaking down for me, including the activities I had proposed. So, yes, so I had not yet approved the budget. It was part of the discussion leading to budget approval. That's why when I made an argument to them that yes, I appreciate all this initiative with the amount of money you have put there. However, I have a new mandate as a minister. The new mandate is to target the people in the informal sector. And I brought the statistics, which I already brought on the floor of Parliament. The working population is now 17 million. And all that. So I told them.
Honorable Minister, procedure.
Interrogate the MD. So if she is around today, we seek the clarification, we get the information. When we meet the MD, he will also give the information.
Okay.
I think.
Honorable Amos.
Thank you, Chair. Cognizant of the fact that we have two more witnesses, if I'm right, like one of the colleagues has suggested that we can always recall the minister, I only wanted to request, because there is a point, a colleague.
Are you going to ask a question? Yet
No,
you
no,
are cognizant of the fact that
I
we have
know
other witnesses?
she was building a point where she did not conclude that point. Then we can allow, with your permission, that we invite another witness.
So, yes, Honorable Masawa.
Chair, I propose that we finish this issue of 6 billion, then we can perhaps let the...
Regard to the 6 billion, a direct question. Honorable Masawa.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mine are direct questions, and I expect a yes or no from the Minister. One, was the 6 million appropriated in the operations budget for the financial 2020 to 2023, yes or no?
Under section, let me quote it, 29(3), the moment the minister approves the budget, that is the appropriated budget. And yes, it was, and I have all the documentation related to the current intervention related to that.
Did you write in one of your letters requesting for a reallocation of 6 billion?
Which letter? You can tender it?
No, it's a yes or no, because I have the letter.
No, 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 no. No, Chair, I can't ask yes or no. When you just said, did you write?
The letter is
you
dated.
can see my file there.
No, you have, the letter is dated 7th December 2022, and I'm on page 14. I believe you have it because we were talking of it. Where you're talking of reallocating 6 billion.
Page 14 of...
Page 14. That is the question I asked, and then you went around and...
No, you see, if you ask a question another person interjects, I cannot answer.
It's a yes
so,
or no? Did you
no,
request
I
for a
can't.
reallocation?
No,
Can we
I
have some
cannot say a yes or
Honorable
no.
Minister.
I have to put context.
Honorable Minister, we have possession of the letter. We shall make observations and recommendations. Unless she's denying, can you show her that letter? Is it signed by her?
Yes.
She actually
All
signed
she has to
on-
do is
on each
accept
page.
whether
No,
she signed
just,
it or
just
not.
tell me the page and your question. I
Page
will
14.
answer. So what
The
is
6
your
billion,
question?
did you write requesting for a reallocation of the 6 billion?
The letter you are referring to is a letter to the chairman, board of directors,
Yes.
on deferral of appointment. It's not a letter writing to the chairman for reallocation. It is analyzing events and issues.
Yes, Honorable Minister, the letter was talking about the deferral, but still you're basing on the 6 billion to defer, because you're saying, you look at point number 2, refusing to adjust the budget to implement the new levy, meaning you wanted
the new
law. So you're talking about one of the reasons for your refusal to, one of the reasons you're giving for the deferral was him refusing to reallocate that 6 billion. That is why I wanted you to confirm, yes or no. And did the MD refuse to reallocate that money, yes or no?
Honorable Chair, I deal with the board on budget. I wrote to the chairman for the issue of 6 billion, not to the managing director. So my letter was asking the chairman about activities and work plan which we had discussed on 25th.
I think you have received what she has said. Do you want to make a conclusion now?
Chair. I think now you can see my point which I raised. In some letter, and we are going to internalize. And then by the time we invite the minister, we would have streamlined maybe.
Honorable members, you have all the documents. You will scrutinize these documents. I'll be inviting you anytime soon to come back and interact with us. We wish you a good evening. Can we have the Minister of Finance and the MD?
Honorable Martin, how are you?
I saw it, but since they said it was supposed to be the PS, that is section what?
Honorable Minister.